Alright, so I had two viewer questions. The first one is,
I'm not too familiar with adjustable gas blocks. Maybe you guys can give me a few tips.
how do I choose to set up my gas block? Well, before we get into that, with gas blocks for me, it must have two things. One, basically be non-adjustable. Anytime I've messed around with an adjustable gas block, like actually tried to tune the rifle, at some point the temperature would change, the bolt carrier velocity would slow down, and it would break my heart. And I'd be sitting there with a rifle that's malfunctioning. Second, it's got to actually be pinned into the barrel. Same thing with set screws. Now, you can do things to make set screws more reliable. Like say it has two set screws, pull one out, run a drill bit down so there's actually a hole, well not a hole, but a dimple in your barrel. Put the set screw back in, put Loctite on it, stake it, and then put another set screw in to make sure that one don't come loose. That does work pretty good, but I'd rather just have the gas block pinned on the barrel. If I can have that option, that's what I'm going with. So, with gas block setup, well, first things first, you got to break in your rifle. Because even in your video, it starts off, it's coming out at like, what, 5 o'clock, something like that? And then towards the end of your video, it's coming out at almost at exactly 3. So before you start really screwing with your gas block, get the rifle to run. Then put a few mags through it, let things loosen up, let all the lubrication get in there. Then you tune your gas block. Now I tune my gas block like this. If it's on this side, well, you got like maybe you're left-handed or you're left-eye dominant. I can't do anything about that. You can't tune that out. So you're kind of screwed. You're going to have a hard life regardless. If it's coming out on this side of the rifle, myself, anything farther back than 3 o'clock, I want more gas. Because I have really cold climates here. It can get down to -20. Consistently, every year it gets down to at least -10. So if I'm in the summertime, I want to be up in here. This is where I consider it good. Now, I know most people say that's overgassed, but again, I'm going through adverse conditions. My rifle could be dirty. I could have snow in the action. It could be like 10 degrees out, maybe -10 degrees out, which really slows your carrier speed down. I prefer my rifles when it comes to AR-15s to be way overgassed. I take the reliability over the slightly harder hitting recoil and the fact that my rifle will wear out a touch sooner. That's just my personal preference. You can tune it how you want, but again, wait a little bit, like let your rifle break in before you make a hard decision, okay, this needs more gas. Because a lot of times your carrier will start getting faster and faster as things break in. Alright, so for the next question.
300 WSM. This is an awesome gun too. And I also built this 308. However, I have not built one of these, and I know you have, so I wonder if you could save me some time with answering some of my questions. This is going to be a 243. It's a 20-inch upper. I wanted to know, 1, what barrel twist do you recommend? 2, what ammo do you recommend? And 3, since it's a 20-inch with a gas length block, can I get away with using a carbine style buffer? Or do I have to go with a very expensive rifle length? And if I have to go with the rifle length, could I possibly, is there one on the market that actually adjusts telescopically the same way that the carbine does?
That was a project I did. Basically, I wanted to test armor, to find out the exact limitations on the armor, what it takes to penetrate through armor, what kind of velocities you're looking at, what type of different projectiles. So what I found out was 3,600 feet per second is the magic number. That's where everything happens. Anyway, he asked, well, let's go over his questions real quick. So what type of ammo? Well, I built the shredder during the ammo shortage. The only factory ammo I ever got to run through it was SIG. It ran really accurate. The rifle did function, not at first because my rifle hadn't broken in yet, so I had too slow of a carrier speed and I would get short stroking. But now the SIG ammo runs through it pretty great. It was consistent. You might want to look at SIG ammunition, and it's cheap. Twist rate. I knew I was going to be running lighter projectiles, which I'll get to in just a second. So I went with a 1.9 twist. With a 1.8, you can basically run anything you want. I mean, to need a 1.7, you're talking like really, really heavy 6mm projectiles. Now the reason I knew I was going to run slower projectiles is because I want to utilize the advantage of the 243. So what is the advantage of a 243, say, over 308, 6.5 Creedmoor? That is speed. The projectile I ultimately winded up choosing had a BC of 409. It was a 90 grain ELDX. Now I know, yeah, I could go with a 108 and get up to 536, but why didn't I do that? What's so special about a 90 grain ELDX? That is velocity. The faster your projectile's coming out, the better your rifle will do in short game. So, for example, we're going to just stick with the same BC number and look at 6.5 Creedmoor and a 30 caliber. So, with a 6.5 Creedmoor, you're going to be looking at around 120 grain. 120 grain, somewhere in there. It's going to be flying at 3,000 feet per second. The 6mm, depending on what barrel length you went with, which was kind of weird with the velocity, because yes, I was hand loading mine, and I know I was going hot. Like, I actually had to put Loctite on the primers to make sure the primers didn't pop out. And even then, sometimes I would have extraction issues because the case would expand so big and it wouldn't shrink down in time to have it ripped out of the rifle. And that's basically what limited me. I would just run it hotter and hotter and hotter until I had extraction issues, and then I would back it off a little bit. But anyway, with the barrel length, I was getting the same velocity that you get out of a 24-inch barrel, and I had a 20. I don't know if that was just because of how hot I was running it or what the deal was, but that's what I got. So a 6mm with a 409 BC, you're looking at about 3,200 feet per second. 6.5, you're looking at 3,000. 30 caliber, you're looking at about 2,650. You know, give or take, depending on how you load your ammunition. How you load your ammunition is a big deal. So, why does that matter? Well, a 6mm at 500 yards, you're looking at about 7.9 MOA in drop. That's 41.4 inches. With a 6.5 Creedmoor with 120, and nobody's going to run a 120. If they're running a 6.5 Creedmoor, it's going to wind up probably being like a 140, 135, something in there to take advantage of the higher BC. So you're going to actually completely dominate the 6.5 Creedmoor 500 yards or closer. It'll even go farther, but I just picked 500 yards because it's a nice even number, and I qualify that as short game for this type of rifle. So with only a 120 grain, which nobody's going to run, they're going to run 140s to get that higher BC, but with a 120, moving at 3,000 feet per second, it's a 5-inch difference. This is how much less the 6.5 drops over a 120. And remember, they're going to be running 140, so it's going to be a lot closer to what the 30 caliber is going to drop, which is 10 inches. Something like this. Doesn't seem like that much, but it adds up. It really does. You're going to be looking at 9 MOA, 46.9 inches. The 30 caliber, you're looking at 10.5 MOA, 55.1 inches. And the same thing goes with wind drift. At 500 yards with a 243, say you're shooting at a Hillman silhouette target, all you have to do is favor the one side up to a 5-mile-an-hour wind. It's got to be like something crazy, like a 10-mile-an-hour or something like that, to where you would actually have to correct for wind. Otherwise, you're just favoring one side of the target. Yeah, the 30 cal and the 6.5 also does pretty good on that, but I would rather take a flatter shooting cartridge that does the same exact job. Most of the shooting ranges are within 500 yards anyway. That's where it's going to excel at. Now you get to 1,000 of that, yeah, now your 140 grains with a higher BC will start to take an advantage, or like a 175 grain, something like that, or a 108 grain ELD. Basically what I'm getting at here is, because it's a flatter shooting cartridge, because it's faster, take advantage of that. I wouldn't run these higher grain BCs, or the higher grain projectiles with a much higher BC, just because it's going to slow it down. Stay above 3,000 feet per second and some real magic happens with the rifle. It'll shoot nice and flat, especially if you're shooting at a very small target at long range. Having a flat shooting rifle makes it a lot easier to hit that target. Obviously also, you know, the accuracy of the rifle itself will make a difference as well. His next question was buffers. So what kind of buffer issues did I have? Well, a 243 actually recoils a lot less than a 308 and a lot less than a 6.5. It's physics. It's just the way it works. So, With buffers, you're not going to have an issue with it being too fast. What you're going to be worried about is short stroking. So can you run an adjustable stock? Yeah, if they make one for a 308, it'll work fine, but is it going to short stroke? You may have to put lighter springs in there because there's not as much recoil energy, enough gas coming back, because it's just a little 6mm hole that it's going to be tapping gas off. So you may not be getting enough gas to cycle that completely. You're basically just going to have to buy it, try it, and then go from there. I think if there is an issue, it's going to wind up being, obviously, the short stroke. So you'll have to run a lighter spring or something like that. Like I said, even with the shredder, I was having short stroke problems at first until the rifle broke in, because there just wasn't enough gas coming back. Plus, you know, that little 6mm hole, it takes a little bit longer for it to bleed off the pressure from the casing, so your casing is going to be a lot more expanded than it would be with like a 308 or a 6.5. So, if it doesn't short stroke, you're good to go. If it does short stroke, well, you know, you may have to come up with some other fixes there. But it'll probably be either short stroking or the carrier will come back without the casing because the casing didn't have enough time to bleed off the gas. But I was running this special barrel that had this special... It was some sort of adjustable gas block, but I didn't fully understand how it worked. If I did, I could have backed off the gas just a little bit and given it a little bit longer dwell time, and that would have probably fixed the problem. But after the rifle broke in, it was pretty much good to go unless I run like way crazy high pressure 55 grain. Now, like I said, it short stroke with SIG ammo in the beginning. It wouldn't go all the way back to let the case pop out, but now that it's broken in, it does that. It only has issues when I hand load my 55 at maximum pressure. Like I said, I have to Loctite in the primers and that, although as I drop primers, I'm running such a high pressure. So, what 8-barrel twist wood ammo should you run? Well, if you wanted to penetrate armor, you got to be running, I think it's 62 grains or less, because you got to be above 3,600 feet per second. If you're above 3,600 feet per second, you can go through a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch of AR 500, which is crazy. Oh, look at that, full penetration. Nice. Punched right through. It'll go through any armor plate except for level 4. So, if you're looking for that, you got to go with like 55. But the 1/8 twist, what I would do is take advantage of the velocity and run either a 55 if you want to make YouTube videos punching through armor plate, or I would go with a 90 grain just so you can take an advantage over the 6.5 and the 308. Because if you just try to go for maximum BC, the 6.5 and 308 will beat you out. They will. They will run a better BC because they can run heavier and heavier projectiles. You just run out of twist rate with a 6mm. The maximum twist weight you can run is like a 1-in-7 or a 1-in-7.5, which maxes out at like a 108 projectile. I think maybe you can run 110s. After that, there's just not rifles with enough twist rate to run a heavier projectile. So your maximum BC is like 550, somewhere in there. So forget about going maximum BC. Unless, of course, you plan on shooting, you know, like 2,000 yards or so, like daily. And I would go for a faster, slightly lower BC, like a 90 grain ELDX with a 409 BC. Anyway, I hope that thoroughly answered the questions you had. If you'd like to help support the channel, I still got the Givesendgo going. You guys are up to 34%, which is amazing. I also got my Patreon. And I do have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on that link, even if you don't purchase what that particular link is for, just clicking on that and then doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. I don't kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.